I'm John Dickerson, the CEO and founder of Quillo, and we're a tech company working in the area of developmental disabilities. And for 42 years, I spent my life with the ARC. The last 32 as the executive director of the ARC. And we can certainly say that we've never experienced anything like we're all going through right now with the pandemic. And out of this, we've seen tremendous tragedy on an individual and a systemic basis. And that's been hard on all of us to get through that. What I'd like to do, though, is share with you a few short stories that what we've learned out of all of this. First one came out of the south side of Chicago, where a young man was determined to test COVID positive at the early stages of the pandemic. And one of his support staff offered to move in with him one on one, leave his own family behind, but staff him for 24/7 for over a month to get him well. That took not only this incredible conviction of the individual staff member, who actually hadn't been with the agency that long and as a DSP for very long, it took the agency to figure out how to pay him for that month and support him through that. And it took the state government to say, we're going to be flexible enough to reimburse you for doing that. Out of that, they learned a way to respond in a whole new manner to this crisis without writing rules and regulations and waiting for approvals from all the powers that be. That young man lived. And now it opens doors for how do we change the system in other ways. These are examples that we can learn from that'll help us grow and be smarter as we come out of this pandemic.
That's great. Yeah,
Okay.
that's great. Yeah, keep going. Keep going. Don't stop. You're on a roll. Go ahead. So much to tell.
Hello, it's John Dickerson from Quillo again. And I want to share with you another story that I've seen personally of how, in a small town in rural America, happens to be from my home state of South Dakota, where the day service programs had to be shut down and staff were sent home. And people moved back with their families, many times with elderly families. And they saw the tragedy of this pandemic up close and personal in their state. And the staff got together without anybody telling them or what to do. And they began thinking, what can we do? And they'd read about in big cities these services where people delivered groceries for a fee to folks that were shut in. Well, a little town of 800 people, there's nothing like that there. And they said, well, why can't we do that? And all of a sudden, these staff who had been laid off started doing the delivery of groceries for families that they supported who were scared of coming out. No one told them to do it. No one said, you've got to do this. People stepped up. That shows the initiative that people can take to take care of one another. These were DSPs that said, we can do something as we wait to get out of this pandemic. What do we learn from that? We have great capacity and we're stronger than we think when we act together.
Terrific. That's great.
Okay. The third one I was going to do was on grace. Hello, this is John Dickerson again from Quillo. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about one of the things this terrible pandemic, I think, has taught us, and that is an appreciation for grace. And the grace we show to one another, the patience we have with one another, and the ability to express our concerns for one another. I was talking with a CEO who had started off, this was shortly, a few short weeks ago, and he was sitting down with one of their staff, and he could tell she was really troubled. And before they jumped into the meeting that they were doing, and this was online, of course, he just looked at her and said, Nancy, how are you doing? How are you handling all of this? And how are we doing helping you? And she started opening up. And for 5 or 6 minutes, they just talked. At the end of that, she turned to him and said, I've worked for you for a lot of years, and this is a wonderful organization. But this is one of the first times I felt the organization was really concerned about me. And that could have made him defensive, could have stunned him. What he said is, to me, it shares with me how much in this time of turmoil we have to be extending grace to one another. And as we think about grace, we're all stretched, we're all scared, whether it's the economy, the pandemic, or all of the above. How do we extend grace to one another and make sure that our coworkers, the people we support, individuals we support, and their families feel that grace and we accept it back from others?
That's terrific.
Okay.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Last one I was doing just was aimed more at our state agency folks. Hello, this is John Dickerson from Quillo again. I've had the great pleasure of working with leaders in state government for coming on 50 years now. And through this pandemic, we have seen leaders in our state government step up and change and respond to the best way they can to the impact of this pandemic. One of the things we have to understand is in government, it's hard to break the rules. It's hard to change what we do. But people are doing it, and we're finding ways to get resources to people in new ways. We're finding changes in how we break the rules to allow people to use telemedicine, to use visits through Zoom to staff in the homes and connect in those ways. I hope that each of us, as we recognize how DSPs are stepping up, we share those thanks and support back to those state leaders who are working as hard as they can to make the system respond within all the constraints that they have, and share with them the successes of what you're doing on this Facebook page and every day throughout the country, because we will get through this, but it'll be together, not depending on one of us, but on all of us together. Thank you for what you're doing.
That's terrific. That's really great. John, you're natural, man. I
Oh,
really, I mean, you just kind of just winged it. I mean, it's just, I mean, I know it's from your heart.
well, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. And, you know, when you talk for a living for nearly 50 years, you either figure it out or you keep
True.
struggling. I think I do both.
Yeah,
So,
I can see that. Now it's great. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to just, right now, just me and you. I'm going to stop the recording right now.